$5,000. That's what this car cost when it was new. Today, someone paid $22 million for it. Same car, same chassis, same engine that's been bolted in since the 1930s. American cars didn't used to be worth this. A Mustang was a Mustang. A muscle car was something your neighbor drove to work. And then something changed. The world woke up, looked at what America had actually built, and started throwing money at it like it might vanish tomorrow. 5 cars, every one of them worth millions. Some worth more than the house you're sitting in. And the stories behind the numbers are stranger than the numbers themselves. If you love this stuff the way I do, hit subscribe before we start, because number 1 is the most expensive American car ever sold, and I promise you have never heard the full story. Let's go! Number 5. And we start with a car that sounds like the end of the world when it turns over. Picture 1971. Detroit is at war with itself. Every American manufacturer is stuffing the biggest, most violent engine it can find into the smallest body that will hold it. Insurance companies are furious. The government is about to shut the whole party down. And Plymouth builds this, the 1971 Plymouth Hemi Cuda Convertible. Under the hood, a 426 Hemi, 425 horsepower, at least on paper. Chrysler famously lied about that number, and the real figure was higher, a lot higher. This was an engine born for NASCAR that somebody decided to sell to the public, with a soft top and a warranty. Here's the part that matters. In 1971, almost nobody bought it. The insurance was insane. The gas crisis was coming. So Plymouth built only 11 Hemi Cuda convertibles that entire year. 11. And of those, only a tiny handful left the factory with a 4-speed manual and a U.S. buyer's name on the paperwork. For years, these things sat in barns and backlots, unloved, because who wanted a gas-guzzling convertible in 1974? Then the collectors did the math. One of them crossed the block for around $3.5 million, with the fees closer to 3.8. 3.8 million. For a car your grandfather could have bought off a lot and driven straight into the ground. Would you have seen that coming? Because I wouldn't have. Nobody did. And if a soft-top muscle car sounds like a strange thing to pay millions for, wait until you see what disappeared into a garage for 40 years. Number 4. San Francisco, 1968. A dull green Mustang is airborne over the crest of a hill, chasing a black Dodge Charger through the city at speeds the police would very much like to talk to somebody about. Behind the wheel, part of the time, is Steve McQueen himself. The studio begged him to stop. He refused. This is the Bullitt Mustang, a 1968 Ford GT Fastback, Highland green, tuned and stiffened for that chase. And here's what makes this one different from every other movie car. It didn't get restored and paraded around a show field. It vanished. After the film, the car was sold to a Warner Brothers employee, then to a New Jersey insurance man named Robert Kiernan. He paid around $3,500 for it. His wife drove it to her teaching job, school runs, grocery trips, the most famous Mustang on the planet, running errands in New Jersey. In 1977, Steve McQueen tracked it down. He wrote Kiernan a letter, personally, asking to buy the car back. Kiernan said no to Steve McQueen. Then in 1980, the clutch went out, and the car went into a garage, and it stayed there for decades. Moved from state to state as the family moved, always in the dark, always under a cover. Most people assumed it was gone for good. Robert Kiernan died in 2014, without finishing the restoration he'd started with his son. So the son, Sean, finished it himself, quietly, by hand, keeping every scratch, including the dent McQueen put in the fender during filming. In January 2020, Sean drove his father's Mustang up onto the auction block one last time. It sold for $3.74 million, the most expensive Mustang in history. A normal 1968 GT like it, around $70,000. The difference, nearly $3.5 million, is Steve McQueen and a garage door that stayed shut for 40 years. What would you have done if that car was sitting under a tarp in your family's garage? Sell it or keep the secret? Number 3. And now the money gets serious. Ferrari humiliated Henry Ford II. That's how this one starts. Ford tried to buy Ferrari. The deal collapsed at the last second, and an insulted Henry Ford went home and told his people one thing: go to Le Mans, beat him. They built this, the Ford GT40 Mk II. It sat 40 inches tall. That's where the name comes from. GT, 40 inches. A monster 7-liter V8 in the back, and side by side, in formation, staged for a photo meant to humiliate Ferrari on his own turf. Number 2. A chicken farmer with a bad heart walks into this story. That's not a setup for a joke. Carroll Shelby raced at Le Mans, won it, and then his heart gave out and the doctors told him he was finished as a driver. So he did what any reasonable man would do. He decided to build his own car instead. He took a light little British roadster, an AC Ace, and he shoved an American Ford V8 into the nose of it. The result was the first Shelby Cobra, chassis CSX2000. This is the one, the very first. The car Shelby collected from the Los Angeles airport as a bare British body and turned into an American legend in his own shop. A 260 cubic inch Ford V8, a body so light the engine barely noticed it was there. When journalists drove it in 1962, it hit 60 miles an hour in 4.2 seconds. In 1962, that number was science fiction. And here's the detail I love. Shelby only had the one car, so when the magazines came to test it, he would repaint it a different color between visits, so the world would think Cobras were pouring out of a factory. One car, a dozen paint jobs, the whole legend built on a bluff. Shelby kept this exact car until the day he died in 2012. 50 years. He never let it go. And when it finally came up for auction in 2016, the first one, the original, the bluff that started all of it, it sold for $13.75 million. The most expensive Shelby ever sold, built by a man who was told his heart couldn't take it. One car left, and it's older than everything you've seen so far, and worth more than all of them combined. Number 1. Forget muscle cars. Forget Le Mans. Go back further, back to the Great Depression, when America was starving, and one company decided to build the most extravagant machine on Earth anyway. The company was Duesenberg, and the car is the 1935 Duesenberg SSJ. Here's how insane this was. The country is on its knees. Banks are closing. Families are losing everything. And Duesenberg, already dying itself, builds a supercharged, short-wheelbase speedster with a 400 horsepower straight-8 engine at a moment when most cars on the road made 40. It was the fastest, most expensive, most absurd American car of its entire age, built while the company was going under. They made 2. That's it. 2 in the whole world. And they didn't sell them the normal way. Duesenberg was being run by a man named Eric Cord, and Cord had a plan. He handed one SSJ to Gary Cooper and the other to Clark Gable, the 2 biggest movie stars alive, hoping the whole country would see them tearing around Hollywood and fall back in love with the brand. It didn't save them. By 1937, Duesenberg was gone. But those 2 cars survived, rolling proof that America could outbuild Rolls-Royce and Bentley any day it chose to. The Gary Cooper car passed through legendary hands. a collector named Briggs Cunningham, then Miles Collier. It was never wrecked, never fully torn apart. The same chassis, the same engine, the same body it left the factory with in 1935. In 2018, it crossed the block at Pebble Beach, and it sold for $22 million. $22 million. The most expensive American car ever sold at auction. And it isn't a Ferrari fighter. It isn't a movie star's muscle car. It's a pre-war speedster built by a company that was already dying for a country that couldn't afford to look. That's the one that gets me. Not the fastest, not the most famous. The one built out of pure, stubborn blindness while everything around it fell apart. So there they are. 5 cars, all worth millions. If I had to put exactly one in my own garage, it's the Duesenberg. Every time. But I want to know yours. Which of these 5 would you drive home? The muscle car, the movie star, the Le Mans killer, the bluff, or the depression ghost? Tell me in the comments. And if you made it all the way here, you're my kind of person. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.